Steven Universe and all associated images are property of Cartoon Network, Rebekah Sugar, and any and all other respective owners. I don't know them all. All footage in this video has been used for the purpose of critique parody under fair use. Please support the official release. So just out of curiosity, do you guys remember Bismuth? Because the show certainly doesn't, am I right? I wanted to put either a cheering or a booing sound effect here, but honestly, I don't know if I'm joking about this or not, so I'm just gonna leave it where it is. Point is, Bismuth was a very dynamic character, and we learned a lot in her self-titled episode. But there are also things that episode showed us that we didn't get an answer to. Like how if people can talk inside Lion's main dimension, then there must be some kind of gas there, so if it's not oxygen, what is it? And will Lion ever get to chew up that t-shirt? And also, how exactly do the weapon enhancements that Bismuth gave to the crystal gems actually work? There are plenty of other questions we could ask about Bismuth, like, is she ever going to be in the show again? Yes, I know I implied that I wanted to know the answer to that earlier, but I just want to make it clear. I want to know the answer to that. But as a theorist, this is the question that I see myself asking the most. That last one of the three, the more serious sounding one about the weapon enhancements, that question. I see myself asking that question the most, and I see a lot of you guys asking it too. They seemed so straightforward in the scene in which they were introduced, and it was such a cool idea. We learned that Bismuth made the material weapons, the non-gem weapons, that were used by the crystal gems during the rebellion period. And then immediately afterwards we see that she has created material extensions to the crystal gems' holographic weapons. Extensions that they can summon their weapons around or attach to their weapons in order to enhance their weapons' capabilities. As material add-ons, these extensions, of course, can't be summoned with the weapon. They would have to be added to the weapon physically as the weapon is being summoned. And likewise, they wouldn't go with the weapon when it desummons. This is because of how gem weapons work. Gem weapons are just holograms, just like the gems' bodies. There's more than enough visual evidence in the show to confirm that. We have seen the weapons appear and disappear in very similar light effects to when the gems create their bodies and when their bodies are poofed. They don't literally summon the same weapons every single time they create their weapons. This has been doubly confirmed by things such as Pearl and Amethyst and Steven's abilities to summon multiple weapons at once, and even Garnet's ability to resummon her gauntlets after she has literally destroyed them. This means that when they summon their weapons, they're not actually summoning something. They're not actually bringing something from somewhere else. They're creating something from light. And since those weapons only exist when they're being projected, just like the gems' bodies, they're not actually stored anywhere. So they can't just, for example, store away their weapon enhancements in the same place that they store their weapons, because that place doesn't exist. And if we had never seen those weapon extensions again, or we had seen the gems only using them in dire situations and actually attaching them to their weapons the same way that they did in Bismuth's self-titled episode, it would be one thing. They would still make sense. But we have since seen Amethyst summon her whips with her weapon enhancements attached, and then despawn her whips and the weapon enhancements along with them. If I'm not mistaken, and my research hasn't failed me, this has only happened in the episodes Beta and Earthlings. Episodes which clearly share, if not a script, then at least a rough story outline. So it's possible that this is just a mistake, that a couple of people on the animation staff didn't realize that those weapon enhancements weren't supposed to be permanent in that way, and that they made it into the episode by accident. But Earthlings actually raises a completely separate problem. After all, we haven't seen any of the other characters use their weapon enhancements again after Bismuth was rebubbled. But in Earthlings, they go so far as to animate Amethyst summoning two whips at once, both with her weapon enhancements. It definitely seems intentional. So how is this possible? There are two possibilities which I think are the most likely. The first is that the gems have some sort of ability to convert matter into energy and then back again, and that they just converted the weapon enhancements into energy and then convert them back later, which isn't entirely far-fetched from a technological perspective. It's one of those things that is technically possible. It's unlikely we'll ever have the ability to do it, but it is worth noting that the gems have never been shown to have an ability similar to this anywhere ever. The closest that they have ever come to displaying a power like this is when Pearl takes things out of her pocket dimension in her gem. Things such as the police tape from Lars and the Cool Kids or Lapis's mirror. They do seem to emerge from her gem as small balls of energy before reforming into what they actually are. But if gems had the ability to convert things from matter into energy, or vice versa, then I would have expected to see it somewhere else as well. For example, this sort of technology is usually attributed to teleporters in science fiction, and yet the teleporter teleporters in Steven Universe, the warp pads, are clearly some sort of wormhole network, not matter-energy teleportation. And before anybody says that that's how the gems create their bodies, it's not. Gem bodies are hard light. Hard light and matter from energy are not the same thing. Same with their weapons. Their weapons are shown to be hard light, not matter created from energy. So I think that this theory is pretty much bunk. But there is another one that I like a lot more. The idea that Bismuth didn't create these weapon enhancements to actually use in every single fight, but more as training tools to teach them how to incorporate those same traits into their weapons, should they ever want to. We have seen more than once that gems have the ability to change the shape of their weapons. They don't seem to have the ability to change the nature of their weapons, but that could be less a restriction on their capabilities and more something that they avoid consciously so as not to compromise their fighting styles. After all, we have seen Pearl, who is known to use swords as well as her spear, summon a spear with a shorter handle that she holds more like a sword from time to time. In the very first episode, for example, it goes from being this shorter handled spear to the full-length spear as she demonstrates it to Steven. Bismuth, as a weaponsmith, would have known how they could adapt their weapons to be more effective in combat without actually adjusting their fighting styles, and might have created these weapon extensions to teach them how to make the changes themselves the next time that they summon their weapons. And that for whatever reason, Pearl and Garnet have just chosen not to use those enhancements again, whereas Amethyst has. This would mean that when Amethyst summons her whip with the enhancement, that enhancement is now incorporated into the holographic whip. It's not actually the part that Bismuth gave to her. There's an additional theory that Bismuth has the power to actually change another gem's weapon, that one of her gem powers is to enhance the weapons of other gems, the actual holographic weapons, and then whenever they're summoned from that point forward, they're likewise enhanced, and that she was using that power on Amethyst's whip when she took it away for a second in her self-titled episode. But I don't see how that can possibly be true. The weapon comes from the gem. She would have to make some change to the information on Amethyst's gem in order for that to happen, and she clearly didn't do that. In the end, I think that the best answer to this question is that Bismuth created those additional weapon parts as a guide to show the other crystal gems how to enhance their own weapons in the same way. I mean, if we look closely at the scene, we can actually see that when Pearl adds the enhancement to her weapon, the light from her weapon, from her still-forming weapon, wraps around the additional part, as if it's learning how to replicate it, as if Pearl is actually feeling out the shape of the part and learning how to recreate it. But this begs another question then. Why is it that Pearl and Garnet have never created their weapons with these enhancements? If it's something that they have now learned how to do, thanks to the extensions that Bismuth made for them, why have they never been shown to use those enhanced weapons again, while Amethyst has? And I think the answer to that one's pretty simple. Amethyst didn't know Bismuth. Pearl and Garnet felt betrayed by Bismuth's actions the same way that Rose did and chose not to use the enhancements that Bismuth gave them, while Amethyst wasn't nearly as affected and so didn't make that same choice. These answers together really do make the most sense out of all possibilities, at least as far as I can see it. But as per usual, I'd like to know, what do you guys think? Do you think I've managed to assemble the most effective answer, or do you think I'm missing a component or two? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.